This is the test for Town Forum.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Winchester Town Forum. The time is 6:30 p.m. My name is Dawn Adey, Strategic Director for Winchester City Council. As this is the first meeting of the new municipal year, I'm opening the meeting to take the first procedural item on the agenda, the appointment of the chairperson and vice chairperson for the 23-24 municipal year. Firstly, could I please ask the forum for nominations for the position of chairperson for 23-24? Councillor Thompson.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Mark Reach.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Westwood.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other nominations? I see none. Can I assume that is agreed? Thank you very much. Now moving on, please could I ask the forum for nominations for the position of vice chairperson for 23-24. Do I have any proposals? Councillor Reach proposed Councillor Batho. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Scott. Thank you. Any other nominations? No. And can I confirm that that's agreed? That's the end of my annual duty. I gladly hand over to Councillor Reach. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. First I need to do is to read the script, so just bear with me. So please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Winchester Town Forum, taking place in the Walton Suite in Winchester Guildhall. Time is 6:30 p.m. My name is Councillor Mark Reach, the newly appointed chairperson of this meeting. Meeting's being live streamed and recorded on the council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available, and advice on how to turn this on is set out on our website. If you're joining online, I don't think there is anyone joining online, so presumably we can skip that little section. In the unlikely event that it's necessary to evacuate the building, fire alarm will sound and follow all the instructions given to you by the team. And could I also welcome particularly members of the public to this meeting. You'll be invited very soon to make your contribution. So we'll go to the agenda, and the first item is to record any apologies, and I believe we have two.
We do. Thank you very much, Chair. So apologies for absence received from Councillor Learning and Councillor Becker. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is to move to disclosure of interests. Or any members or officers needing to make any disclosures. Councillor Todd.
Yes, I need to disclose a personal but non-pecuniary interest as a county councillor in respect to any issues that might arise relating to the highways network. And I am also, I'm on that basis and any other county issues.
Thank you. Any others? Wonderful. So next point is chairperson's announcements. Obviously, I'm thrilled to have been selected as the chair of the Town Forum for the year ahead. I've got an echo. Is that really annoying for everyone? Or is that okay? Fine. But I would like to first, I'd like to welcome councillors who are continuing in their role on the Town Forum. There are a few around tonight, but I'd particularly like to extend a warm welcome to new councillors, Councillors Eve, Morris, Prest, and Wise, who are new this year on the Town Forum. And I'd also like to welcome again public participants. So we'll move next to the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 13th of March on pages 5 to 12 in your pack. Could I check if there are any comments on those, please? Well, this is going absolutely swimmingly. Fantastic. So we'll move on straight on to public participation, please. And I think we have two members of the public. Claire, who's up first, please?
Nicola Rule.
So, Mrs. Rule, could you take your place there, please? It is. Please, if you lean into the microphone and press the button on the right, and I think you were going to talk to us about Winnell Moors Nature Reserve, please.
Yes, good evening, Chair, Council. Thank you for allowing me to share this subject for our community. I'd like to make a plea to enhance Winnell Moors Nature Reserve and bring it into the forefront of Winchester's public eye. It is Winchester City's best kept green environmental secret space. A space in the very heart of the city that possibly few residents use and even fewer visitors know about. Even though it is promoted online, its credentials are hugely being overlooked, and I would like to bring this underused, somewhat sidelined, important, eco-friendly place more into the forefront of everyone's mind. 20,000 people travel each day into Winchester, and we have 130,000 population who embrace going green, and probably more who want to come here in the evenings, if not now, certainly in the future. And I know that's your plan, to enjoy the city to its fullest. It's a huge space, Winnell Moors, 64 hectares and 2.5 miles of boardwalk. From Derngate to the university, it features flora and fauna of exotic, rare and protected kind. Deer, otters, a lake, the River Itchen runs through it, managed by Hampshire Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, part owned by yourselves at Winchester City Council, part of the Countryside Agency's plan for a South Downs National Park. This protected Winchester Reserve should be uppermost in enhancing the public realm of this city. It should be signposted in town for better connection and creating a connection corridor to the centre so everyone knows about it. I would propose a more prominent and beneficial entrance, a manned kiosk in the style of the National Trust to welcome visitors, or an honesty box with a view to charging later on, which would help in the moor's preservation. There needs a stronger, up-to-date hoarding at the entrance to inform visitors of what to expect from their experience. There is a lake which could be improved with benches, rare species of plants and flowers that could be labelled. The quality of the park lends itself to better scrutiny. Carbon capture from its trees could be monitored and its healthy hedgerows surveyed for education purposes. The community could become more involved and operate rotational working groups to help maintain segmented garden or allotment spaces, such as the like at St Cross, and encourage studies of rare plants like at Wisley in Surrey. The local plan encourages the introduction of new greener spaces, yet here we already have this wonderful space in the middle of our city, which we could all benefit from and make more of. At the entrance, Derngate, the £750,000 project, has its own relevant story, and this should be told about how it prevents the flood damage to our inner city. Its story could be on a hoarding to explain the significance of its vital role. There are other bodies to get involved, such as Natural England, the CPRE, PFSH, Partnership for South Hampshire, and to be part of the South Hampshire Green Infrastructure Strategy. All help ambitions for growth and work towards a carbon neutral Winchester. We could even
could I just ask you to wrap it up a bit,
National
please?
Register of Great Inner City
Thank you.
Parks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off there at the end. I know Winnell Moors Nature Reserve is something that people are very passionate about. I think it's a wonderful place. I wonder if there are any members who'd like to comment. Councillor Cooper?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Winnell Moors is in my ward, and it is really refreshing and lovely to hear such a passionate sort of extolling of its virtues. It is a really, really valuable space. Hampshire Isle of Wildlife Trust worked really, really hard to preserve all the parts of it that need preserving. I think there were some really interesting thoughts within that speech, and I think in dialogue with Hampshire and Wildlife Trust, it would be worth sort of exploring some of that a little bit more.
Thank you very much. Later on the agenda, you of course are welcome to stay, Mr. Rule. Later on, we'll be appointing some people to the Parks and Recreation informal group of the town forum, and that's definitely the forum, sub-forum, through which we can take forward some of those ideas perhaps. If there are no further comments on, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, firstly, it's a place I love dearly. I used to live in Hyde, used to walk there very regularly. Indeed, I took a visiting Canadian friend there recently, where we thoroughly enjoyed the reserve, but ended up in discussing what was the meaning of the word Derngate and what the meaning of the word Venta is, and Venta Belgarum, amongst other things, which related to how they used water and fed cattle visiting markets. But anyway, no, it is a really special area. Obviously, we'll need to check what role we have in terms of how it's managed and what influence we can have. But certainly, I think it's one where we can make sure that there's relevant signage. I know that part of the purpose of what we're planning to do with Friarsgate is to open up walking routes from the Broadway through towards that part of the town, and make it all a bit more porous and walkable. Somebody will remind me the name of is it the Woodpecker? We do actually have a nature trail that was put together to encourage young people to visit all our parks, and I don't know what the name of it wasn't Woody.
The Watervole Trail, perhaps?
The Watervole Trail, that would be the one. Wonky the Woodpecker.
Yeah.
So it is something that you know, the council has put effort into before, and it was certainly part of our thinking in terms of what we were trying to do with Friarsgate. I do have to declare an interest, by the way, as part of the Partnership for South Hampshire, where I'm on the board of it. Although it doesn't cover this area, so it wouldn't be getting involved in it. But no, I think the idea of just having a conversation, look at what we're already doing, see if there's anything that needs refreshing, and how we can make sure it's reflected in everything we do, is a very good one, because it is an incredibly special part of our city, and it's the kind of thing that when people discover it, and discover it's there and go there for the first time, even after they've lived here for many years, it is a source of great joy to people as soon as it becomes part of their Winchester life. So thank you very much indeed for raising it.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you again, Mrs. Rule. It's great to hear such passion about a wonderful place in Winchester. We'll move on now to Mrs. Wood, Deirdre Wood. Please, you've seen how it's done, so if you come up and please talk to us about traffic in Hyde.
I'm very grateful for this chance to speak to the town forum, as there is growing unhappiness in Hyde Street regarding the speed and volume of its traffic. I'm Deirdre Wood, and I've lived in Hyde Street with my husband for 39 years. Hyde Street is a narrow residential road in some places with only a few feet separating our homes from fast-moving traffic. Motorists tend to accelerate if they see an open stretch, and the legal 20 miles an hour speed limit introduced in 2014 is only rarely observed, with 30 miles an hour and faster being the norm. There are hundreds of residents in Hyde Street, and we all suffer from the resulting noise, vibration and pollution. This is an historic Winchester street with 34 listed buildings that over the years has been allowed to become a rat run. It can also be dangerous to cross the road for mothers with pushchairs, the elderly, school children, and those with poor sight. Cyclists are also discouraged from using Hyde Street at peak times because of speeding cars. Hyde Street has been classed by Imperial College London as one of the most polluted in Winchester, with some 3 times the World Health Organization limit for nitrogen dioxide levels at some point along its length. It has also been found that cars travelling at 30 miles an hour produced almost twice as much nitrogen dioxide as those travelling at 20. Nitrogen dioxide is a pollutant that can harm the lungs, increase upper respiratory infections, and may lead to asthma. Emergency stopping distance also double from 20 to 30 miles per hour, so increasing the risk of road accidents. All this suggests that the effective slowing of the traffic to 30 miles an hour can have a major impact on pollution, can improve road safety, and also decrease car emissions of the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide, which also rise sharply from 20 to 30 miles an hour. Proper control of traffic speed in Hyde Street would therefore be highly effective and an urgently needed policy. At present, the 20 signs painted onto the road surface are worn away, and there are no repeater signs to remind the drivers of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. In many towns and villages in Hampshire, red and green speed recording lights have proved highly effective in controlling traffic speed, as have white side gates showing the roads change to a more residential area. Some 5,000 cars, vans, lorries and coaches use Hyde Street every weekday, a situation made worse through the use of sat-nav. With our growing knowledge on the dangers of pollution to human health, plus the ever-increasing traffic in our street, we hope that members of the Town Forum can help in a practical way to tackle this worsening situation. Thank you for your time and your attention.
And thank you very much for bringing this important issue to the Town Forum. I think we're all familiar with Hyde Street. There are many other examples across the city where speeding traffic is an issue. And thank you as well for sending ahead of time the points you were going to make. It's given us an opportunity to do a little bit of digging into the work that we have done and the work we could do in this area. I'd like to open it up if there's any comments. I'm looking towards Councillor Todd, who as a county councillor may also have more direct responsibility for highways. But if there are any others who would like to comment, please make it on.
So I'm not the county councillor for Hyde Street. My boundary stops in Worthy Lane, but I was instrumental in getting the 20-mile-an-hour limit into Hyde Street in the first place. I remember sitting in a meeting with former county councillor Fiona Mather and myself, where cross-party we worked to say that it was obviously logical that Hyde Street had to be included in the city centre 20-mile-an-hour area. Otherwise, I think the argument we used was that otherwise there would be a 30-mile-an-hour sign as you approach the end of Jury Street, and that was clearly illogical that you were to cross over the junction and accelerate away. And that was, I think, the argument we used at the time in order to get it put in the first place. So I've always felt a slight sort of proprietary sense of ownership for the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Hyde Street, because it was genuinely one of the few areas which we managed to get added to the scheme as it was being discussed back in 2013 and 14. I was also part of the working group that looked at 20 miles an hour limits, and at Hampshire recently reported just I think about February, and looked at the option for extending their use and what it would take to get them better implemented. So taking some of the points that you have highlighted, first of all, as you rightly point out, there is an issue with the white lines and the reminders to people that there is a 20-mile-an-hour limit having faded. And I know that Councillor Cooper has reported these, and as a county councillor for the area, I've contacted we both contacted Councillor Hiscock, and he will be following up with the safety teams to say this needs to be refreshed. There's clearly an issue at the moment. One of the recommendations of the 20 miles an hour working group at Hampshire was to loosen the rules on flashing signs and make them easier to implement. It is something that we've had before in the Town Forum. I was sharing a photograph with colleagues of the late Councillor Ray Pearce standing in front of a 30-mile-an-hour sign, I think in Greenhill Road or somewhere like that. It's somewhere in full flood. So we have had a sign before. There is a capital cost. There is the running cost of moving about, doing safety audits and other such things. But having spoken to colleagues on the Town Forum, there is definitely interest in understanding what those might be, what the cost would be, how we might fund it, and how we would find the money for that, because it may involve cutting back in some other areas. On a wider level, there is work underway to reduce traffic levels in Hyde Street on Worthy Lane. So one of the things that came out of previous discussions about traffic in Hyde Street was the recognition that Worthy Road, there were issues with its safety for cyclists, and we needed to give people living in the Worthies other options to get into Winchester, because many people, for understandable reasons, don't like to use the Cart and Horses junction. And so in practice, that forces a lot of traffic down Worthy Road, who then use Hyde Street because they don't actually want to get to this end of town. They want to get to the other end of town. And so they're going down North Walls to get to it. So there is a project that funded by Active Travel England to re-engineer Worthy Road in order to make it better for cycling and make it better for pedestrians as well, to give people more options to not use the car when coming in from the Worthies. And colleagues are also pushing to make the Cart and Horses junction safer and improve cycling infrastructure on that side of Kingsworthy as well. And the combination of M3 Junction 9, if that happens, will mean that there should be a significant reduction in traffic, particularly in Hyde Street, which will definitely help. One of the other conclusions of the working group on 20 miles an hour was that, certainly from some of us on the 20 mile an hour working group, that what we actually need to do to control speeds, there is a question of putting in engineering, highways interventions, but as you may have seen, the county's financial position is extraordinarily precarious at the moment, and so it is very difficult to get priority for engineering measures. But one of the things that we haven't done in Winchester and should be doing is creating area-wide norm of a 20 mile an hour limit. So one of the reasons why 20 miles an hour doesn't work in Hyde Street is that as you go around Winchester, sometimes it's 20 miles an hour and sometimes it's not 20 miles an hour. And so it's not predictable. And if we actually said we want the norm for residential streets everywhere in our city to be 20 miles an hour, that would help Hyde Street in terms of slowing down the traffic. And then finally, and this is something which, when we've spoken to engineering and police and everybody else, one area which is incredibly important, and I know it's something that Councillor Batho is active in, is speed watch. And the great thing about speed watch, aside from reminding people that they need to drive more slowly and identifying people who are behaving badly in terms of the safety of their driving, it does also provide evidence in terms of how people are driving and what needs to change. So I know, having spoken to Councillor Batho, that the intention is very much that that will be reactivated, and if there are residents in the area who wish to get involved, if they're not already, then obviously that would be very welcome. So there's a range of things that can be done and are being done, and there is general support in terms of getting traffic to safer speeds in our city, because that is part of making it a more livable place, a safer place with better air quality. And it's something that I think everybody here is absolutely committed to.
Can I say something?
By all means, please.
I used to be part of Speed Watch, and I know James does a wonderful job, and with my neighbour here for 2 years, and we really gave up on it because we found it was just a box ticking exercise. We were there for a minute drop of the time there, and it works while you're there, but as soon as you pack up, it's just back to normal again. And it's not a healthy thing to do either. I mean, did it in North Walls, all over the place. I mean, heaven knows how many pollutants I've got in my brain or whatever, just by standing in North Walls. I mean, it just it's not a good thing. And there's so many modern electronic advantages now that can surely gauge the speed of traffic. And what about the 20 mile an hour? We're quite happy to raise money in Hyde Street to bring some of these engineering advantages about, that you mentioned. dish ones and the ones that go on the
Oh,
lampposts.
well, those are the ones that would be absolutely intention is that the town forum will have a look, will investigate the cost and the capital cost and the revenue cost of implementing flashing signs. And
the posts
they
will be
do-
there, aren't they?
they-
Lampposts like that.
they do record what the speeds are
Oh,
and
sorry,
provide extra evidence.
About just the, you know, just the.
We do,
Oh,
we do need to make some progress, I think, but thank you. I mean, I think
in terms of reminders, just the changing traffic signage for speeds is actually extremely difficult. There are very strict rules about how signs can be used, where they're placed, how they repeat, and I think it even requires county to do an entirely new traffic order in order to change how the 20 mile an hour is signed. So again, that's something at the moment where there is enormous battle for priority for all kinds of measures right across the city in order to get priority for any kind of engineering change of that sort. But certainly something like a flashing sign, which does have a more dramatic impact, is something that it is within the powers of the town forum to look at.
Brilliant.
so. Just to give you some assurance, so this is something that the town forum we have been discussing because, as I said, you very kindly shared your point before, and it's something I'm sure we'll bring to subsequent town forum meetings. Councillor Tibbet Cooper wanted to make a very brief comment, I think.
I'll make it even briefer than I was going to, Chair. So just to say to Ms. Wood, thank you so much for coming along, and I share your concerns about High Street. As you know, I cycle down that street daily with my 4-year-old on the back of a bike, and it's the worst part of my journey, precisely because there are lots of considerate drivers on that road, but there are a few that aren't, and particularly the speeding from the junction after Highgate down towards the North Walls traffic lights is the bit which normally I find is the bit that drivers try to get to the lights before they turn red and speed doing so. And it's just to reassure you that as your local councillor, your local councillor team, we're certainly going to try and do everything we can do to support you with this, whether it be raising awareness amongst the community, doing those speed watches, doing those you know, they're getting the signage out there, you know, with residents with them. And exploring the options that Councillor Todd has helpfully outlined. There's a lot of complexities as has been expressed, but if we can find a way through them, we'll certainly try.
Okay. And bike boxes, while I'm here, bike boxes at traffic lights, there's nothing.
I'm really sorry, we've
Okay.
got a big agenda. I mean, you
All right.
really have made a very forceful point, and you know, I can promise you we've been talking about it behind the scenes. Councillor Bathurst was going to say me a dozen words or so on Speedwatch because I know he's very passionate about it.
Yes, I just wanted to say welcome to Deirdre and the other residents of Hyde Street. I have met you on a number of occasions while we've been out doing our sessions with Speedwatch, not only there but around other parts of the city. I think in terms of your concerns, I agree they are, you know, sort of very relevant, and you know, sort of having seen the actual evidence myself. There are similar situations around the city, and I think what we need to do is actually look at it as a general concern and a general sort of issue, and look at how we can, you know, sort of come to a range of options which we could, as a town forum, then implement, you know, sort of around the city. One of the things I would suggest and would ask is that there are anybody, you know, sort of either here or anybody that might be then listening to this as a recording. If you're interested in Speedwatch, please contact myself, and we'll you know, sort of induct you into the team. Just very briefly, in terms of that, at the moment, Speedwatch is the only engagement that Hampshire Police are, you know, sort of allowing in terms of civilian involvement with monitoring and, you know, sort of looking at speed. So I know you've obviously had you've had involvement with it before, but it is the only way. I am having conversations with the local police about, you know, sort of how we can, you know, improve that. There is a PCSO that's actually assigned now to Speedwatch, and you know, sort of our involvement then with it. So I'm hoping that we can actually sort of improve that, and through the work we're likely to do with the town forum, provide some form of reassurance to you about, you know, sort of addressing some of those concerns you have. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you very much. We hear you loud and clear. It's something we'll talk about through the rest of the year. We may well want to invite you back if you'd be happy. But thank you. You've made your points very forcefully, very passionately.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Wood, could you turn your mic?
If you don't mind just pressing the button on the microphone, the one on the right. Excellent. Done. Did I just press that one? Goodness, the power, it's extraordinary. Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 7, which is just the next dates for the town forum, one of which we may well discuss this and other items. There are, as in the pack, I will take that they are understood and we can move over that bit. Wonderful. So we'll move to agenda item 8, which is WTF 319, which is the budget review, which I think Dawn, you're going to present to the forum, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting tonight as Mr Kennedy's on annual leave, so just bringing his paper for you here. In January of this year, you agreed the way ahead to close the budget gap. Just to remind or inform you, the budget gap is a shortfall of 282,000 that we need to close by the end of the year 25-26. So in January this year, you agreed a number of priorities that you would like officers to have a look at, and we work with your accounts group in doing so. As it's been a number of months since that meeting, we've brought to you today just an update, so give you some assurance that that work is progressing, and hopefully you can see through the report when the outcomes of that research work will land in your work plan, yet to be agreed as a future agenda item. So it's just to give you some assurance that the work is underway, to remind you that the work is there. And clearly, you know, as your year goes and you look at other items, you've got this gap already in there. You've got to you know, to take the balance on board when you're taking on new items as well. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Dawn, Mrs. Adey, I should say? Dawn. Councillor Thompson, please.
Yeah, just a really quick question, actually. I see that one of the areas you're going to be looking into is the open spaces and grounds maintenance. And obviously that's an enormous part of our budget. So I personally would really welcome that sort of clarity on what we're doing with all our open spaces. So it was really just a comment and say I think that's a good area to start it.
Thank you very much. Dawn, do you want to respond to that?
I'll pass that to Andy Hickman, but yes, we agree it's a large part of your budget, and it needs to be much clearer where it's being spent, as well as if we've got any economy in there.
And I would just add as well, you know, we've already had discussions about the proportion of the budget that is spent on open places, and it's humongous, to use the technical term. So it's something we're going to really dig into this year. I would like to. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I said under Appendix 1, Dawn, I don't know if you want to reverse when Darren comes back, but under the grant and vision delivery, we seem to be going downwards. So 80,000 this year, 80,000 to 70,000, then go down to 60,000, then goes down in 26 to 27, 50,000. So do we know why we're going down on the grant aid to sort of town forum, sort of voluntary sectors in the town?
So I will verify with Darren, but as I understand it, that's the budget financial projections that you're looking at. So that's the target that we're looking at is this piece of work. That's the piece of work we'll bring forwards to you to say if you want to make an economy in that area, we're working out what you would take out to get down to that 50,000 number. So it's purposeful. It's definitely intention to be in there, but you haven't yet identified how you're going to get from start to finish. That's the piece of work we've got to do.
We get £45,000, which we've done for a long time with Labour Services, and I've just been on a couple of street meets with Labour Services. I'm not sure we've ever had them come positively to present what we get for our 45,000, because obviously they get a big proportion from the City Council coffers as well. I think on a positive note, could we somewhere down the line maybe invite the Labour Services to a town forum, just to so that we can explain where the 45,000 is spent on the town forum budget? Because standing with them on the street meet recently, it's a very positive to go back out on our neighbourhoods. So I'm saying it from a positive point of view.
I think that's a really good point. I think you might have taken yourself in action, if you don't mind, to speak to the relevant officers. So yeah, by all means, please. Are there any other comments? So I think we need to just note the three things to note in the paper. So the first of which, bear with me. First of which, just to note the medium-term financial projections from financial year 24 to 27, as shown at Appendix 1. Can take that as noted. Second is also the budget review area target timetable for financial year 24 as well. Good. And the final one is the budget timetable for FY 24-25. We're happy with that. Excellent. So we will move on to agenda item number 9. So I think we've got Steve, thank you, to present this WTF 318 regarding open space at Kings Barton.
Thank you, Chair. Vast majority of Kings Barton development sits within the parish of Hebborn Worthy, but a small piece sits within the town ward of St Barnabas, and that's highlighted in the in shaded orange in Appendix 1 to the report. This means that a proportion of the 24 hectares of recreational and public open space on the site falls within the town area for which the town forum is responsible, hence coming to you with this report for your information tonight. Usual approach within the district is for parish councils to hold the freehold of open space land and to manage it in perpetuity as public open space. We therefore are intending to seek cabinet approval in July for the open space land within the Hebborn Worthy parish to be transferred in phases from Carla Holmes to Hebborn Worthy Parish Council, along with the associated maintenance sum. Now, continuing that approach, we will also be seeking cabinet approval for the open space land within St Barnabas ward to be transferred from Carla Holmes to the City Council and allocated to the town account. This would come with a commuted sum for maintenance of the land for the foreseeable future. All of that means that the management of public open space at Kings Barton could be delivered under two independent and separate maintenance regimes. Obviously, there are downsides to that. So the Parish Council, Hebborn Worthy, has offered to take responsibility for what is a relatively small amount of open space within the town area and manage it all through a single contract for across the whole of the Kings Barton development. Now, that would require a share of the commuted sum that comes to the town forum to pass from the town account to Hebborn Worthy Parish Council on an annual basis to cover the costs that they incur in maintaining that town land. But paragraphs 11.5 and 12.1 set out the reasons why we believe that would be a sensible arrangement for councils, for the contractors, and also for residents of the area. The first of the land within the town forum area is ready to be inspected and would be ready for transfer soon after cabinet approval. So it's important that we get arrangements agreed fairly imminently. Finally, I just wanted to make it sort of highlight that it should be noted long-term governance arrangements for the area won't be resolved completely until 2025-26 possibly. After that time, responsibility for Kings Barton may pass to a different body. The outcome of any governance review may lead to creation of a new parish council or change of boundaries. So these open space maintenance and management arrangements may be changed or require review, and that means that initially we'd be looking at a relatively short-term arrangement. So I think that's all I need to say. The rest is all in the paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. From reading it, it does seem like a pragmatic way forward as a kind of interim solution. I would just invite maybe the councillors of St Barnabas if you have any questions or any comments you would like to make. Deafening silence. Are there any other questions for Steve? Councillor Scott.
Hearing what you're saying about the offer from Hebborn, what's the trade-off? What's the pros and cons? What happens if we don't accept their offer and we want to do a bit more from a council point of view because of the offer coming direct from Carla to us?
It's not really a trade-off. I think if the forum felt strongly that there was benefits in keeping the land and maintaining it as part of the town's sort of asset base, then you know that absolutely could happen. I think on balance, and the report just touches on one or two of the sort of the benefits and the disadvantages. I think we felt that it did make sense in terms of a sort of coherent approach to managing amenity land across all of Kings Barton, in terms of not necessarily having different teams of contractors going out different times, different days, but mowing half of a piece of open space and the other one's mowing the other half of it. It just kind of, it has that ring of sort of local authority doing what local authority can do sometimes, and not looking at the sensible approach. Like I say, it's something we plan to take a decision paper to Cabinet next month for approval for this. It's something, the allocation of land once it's transferred from developer to local authority, it's a Cabinet function to then allocate that to the town forum and the town account. So that's why we would be taking that to Cabinet for approval alongside a number of other things that just need agreeing as part of these wider arrangements. But yeah, if the forum felt very strongly that it wasn't the right approach, we could take that land on board, and it would effectively then just be added to the sort of work programme, the ID30 contract that's maintained along with other land within the town area. As I say, I think it's just worth pointing out that it really would be a relatively short-term arrangement. A couple of years is really quite short-term until arrangements for Kings Barton area are sort of reviewed alongside other sort of boundary issues, at which point the whole thing will naturally come together as a fully coherent area. So.
Thank you. Dawn, did you want to add something to that? Councillor Batho was next. I don't know if you want to respond immediately to what we've just heard.
I do want to just add to that, if I may. So if you've decided to take on your own share, you'd get a share of the funds to maintain that, which have a limited life. And whilst that's a reasonable amount of time, at the end of that life, the maintenance would remain with you. If it's with a parish council, and as Steve said, to be determined, they can raise precept to make sure that they can stay on top of those payments, and whereas you wouldn't be able to do that. So you could be taking on an incumbent, not for the first 15 years, but you could be taking on a long-term incumbent on the maintenance of it. So if you wanted to look at it.
Councillor Batho.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, just a clarification. The actual land will still remain within the town sort of remit. The conversation here and the proposal here is really just about the maintenance, the actual cutting of the grass and sort of decisions about actually how it's then managed.
That's right, absolutely. That's what we're proposing at the moment. So the land would become part of the town asset base, but we'd simply be looking at, want of a better phrase, contracting out the maintenance of it to the parish council through their maintenance contract. That's right.
Just a supplementary, given that there is obviously then a subsequent decision to be had about the actual governance of that area, would it not be feasible for the land to be transferred to the city council to start with, and only at the end of that governance period the land would be returned, or would be sort of handed over to whichever authority was then deemed to be the appropriate for that area?
It absolutely could happen. It wouldn't necessarily make the process at the end of any governance review any simpler or different. There would still be a process of realigning boundaries, reallocating land if necessary from one authority to another. So it wouldn't necessarily make any great difference there. I mean, what I would have to say is conversations with Headbourne Worthy Parish Council, they've been really positive and really proactive about their desire to kind of show that leadership, to provide that service and that engagement with the residents of Kings Barton. So that they very much made it clear to us that they welcome that. They see that as a really positive thing. They are the local council in that area, and the most local council, the most local tier of local government, and they've been very clear with us that that's what they would like to see. So I think we sort of took that as a really positive message, a really positive sign, and felt that was, when you overlay those things together, that was the best approach for certainly the next coming couple of years.
Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I think I see the logic of the local authority or the parish that represents most people in that area having overall responsibility. Is it being done in a way that doesn't prejudice the results of any community governance review? Is it being sort of ring fenced slightly so that it's easy? It's not totally mushed in, and if whatever the people of Kings Barton and whatever the city decides decides to do in terms of community governance. We're not sort of precluding that and making it difficult for the future. And just for memory, how did we handle the open space in North Whiteley? I think in that case we also transferred some of it, even though it wasn't yet part of Whiteley Town Council, into Town Council. Or was that just the bus stops?
Yeah, in terms of open space, I don't believe any of the open space has yet been transferred from the developer. So we're just starting some of those conversations now, and obviously the governance is already addressed there. Maybe a better example would have been Waterloo, where some of the land was transferred in advance of the governance being addressed. So some of that land did come to the council, and it has created complications, I would have to say. We had to then deal with it as a disposal of land because it comes to the council first. So I think there's definitely a view that if the long-term intention is for it to end up with a parish, it's a cleaner and neater and tidier arrangement if the land goes straight to the parish. Obviously, the prime focus of coming to you tonight was to talk about the bit within the town account area, which is a slightly different situation because that land is coming to the town and it will sit as a town asset. We're really just talking about who's going to actually look after it day to day on almost a sort of agency basis on who's going to look after it for a short period of time.
Right. So we're talking about so the actual asset will belong within the town area, right, to the town account, but we're saying that the commuted sum and the associated maintenance will be part of an integrated overall pot. I suppose my question is that commuted sum being kept separate from other funds within Headbourne Worthy Parish Council, so that if the people of, the result of the community governance review is to say there's a different arrangement, it's not all sort of merged together?
That is something that would normally be their business to decide and determine. But in terms of if we're talking about the money which is going to be in relation to the town land that they'd be looking after, then we won't be paying them the entire commuted sum because of the nature of the arrangement. We'll just pay them we pay them on an annual basis, so we would pay them a chunk of money just so they've got enough to look after the next year. The commuted sum for the area that would be their responsibility, they will receive the entire commuted sum, so they'll have that, and right, that will be the money that will see them through the next 15 or so 20 years, whatever it is. The land for the town would be much more on a management agreement basis, so there'd be an agreement that says you look after this for us, we will transfer and we'll pay you the sum that you're committing to look after our bit of land. So the commuted sum would still remain in the town account and just be paid across as appropriate to cover the costs that the parish council would be incurring.
Okay, that seems even more sensible. Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Morris.
Thanks. Looking at the map of the area, the open space runs alongside Andover Road, which is mainly used by residents in St Barnabas for travel and not so much for Headbourne Merthynside. I was wondering whether the actual open space could be divided in some way, so the responsibility for just the footpath and the stuff impacting on Andover Road could remain with the Town Forum.
We could certainly go away and look at that. I have to say my team are dealing with the detail of this, so the fine detail is probably not something that I'm completely in touch with. I could certainly just go away with them and just double check on that. We can go away and just have a look and make sure that there isn't areas that would be more appropriate. So I could certainly take that away.
And also just a clarifying comment there, which is I think the area we're talking about is classified as highways land. So irrespective of its ownership, that means that the county maintains it or contracts Winchester City Council to maintain it.
This map probably doesn't go to the level of fine detail that would identify that. I think you are right, Councillor Todd, that I think the open space land that would come to the council, there will be a strip of land running directly alongside the highway that would be probably transferred to the county. It's not amenity land, it's highway verge. Yeah.
Perhaps, Steve, if you're happy, just get that fine detail for councillors Morris and Todd, and we can deal with that offline if the councillors are happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to come. Which brings me to, if there are no further questions for if there are no further questions, it brings me to the recommendations, which were to note the arrangements that we've heard, which I will assume the forum has noted, but also to note that, as Councillor Todd just reminded us, that the Cabinet will be asked to decide and to endorse this in July. I will take that both of those have been noted by the Town Forum. Councillor Scott, yes.
One thing for the Cabinet, when the paper comes fully to you, ask about the residents' service charge. What do they pay in for their maintenance? Because on these big schemes, quite often, there's a service charge. So it'd be interesting in the Cabinet to go through that as well, despite this gift coming from Carla.
But advice taken, Councillor Scott, I will certainly do that.
Thank you. I think that's the end of that agenda item. Thank you, Mr. Lincoln. So this brings us to the next one, agenda item number 10, which is any informal updates from any updates from the informal groups, I should say. I suspect it's been a busy summer for all sorts of reasons, so I'll quickly scan around the room. And we will take that item at the next Town Forum. So we will move on to agenda item 11, which is the group appointments and work programme for this year. So that's WTF 317. Dawn, are you happy to present this?
Yes, thank you. So it's your annual report laying out your setting of your governance, your subgroups, and your work programme, which you will see we've knitted in from the agenda item about the budget, and we've put the proposed dates that we're bringing your budget items forward into. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions on this? Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions, really. One was, I didn't see in there is going to be a review of the markets, and I thought perhaps, as that is a town, it may be in there and I may have missed it, but I do think that ought to come here as an item. And the other thing is the Shared Prosperity Fund. I know it's coming up to business and housing, but I think also, and I know Councillor Reach, that you are now, as chair of the Town Forum, it's appointed member on the Shared Prosperity Board, but I think it would also be worth having an update on that too, brought to the Town Forum.
Have a look at that one, because if it's already going to a committee, we wouldn't normally take it to more than one, but I'll take that away to the officers if I may.
Okay, thank you. And I think on the markets one, I think that's absolutely fine to add into the excellent. There are nods around the room. Excellent. Any other questions? No. So the next bit, the fun bit, is the informal groups for the year ahead. These are the important groups that actually get a lot of business done and transacted, and important things for the Town Forum. There are a few changes, and obviously with membership, some members having stood down and some new members joining the group. They are detailed in the pack, apart from the attendance. So what I'd like to do is tediously read out the names for each of the informal groups under the Town Forum. But the first point to note is as detailed in the paper, the collapsing into one of the two very similarly titled city centre groups into one overarching city centre group. Are there any questions or comments about that? No. So I will move to the promised fairly tedious part of just reading through the names. So hopefully I will look around the room and check that colleagues are content with this. So the first group is the city centre group, and the following members. So that would be councillors Becker, Edwards, Scott, Westwood, Batho, Lerney, Thompson, Todd and Wise, with the chair as Councillor Edwards. The next one would be the very important Parks and Recreation informal group, which we've talked a little bit about already in this Town Forum, and that would be councillors Batho, Becker, Lerney, Tippett Cooper and Edwards, with Councillor Batho kindly volunteering to chair that informal group. Third one would be the very important accounts group with councillors Lerney, me, Councillor Todd and Councillor Wise, with Councillor Lerney chairing that one. Then the heritage group, which is always a pleasure to hear about the very good work they've done, which Councillor Tibbet Cooper has very kindly agreed to continue to chair this year, and it will be ably supported by Councillors Thompson, Westwood, Eve and Morris. Then the Town Vision Group, which Councillor Batho is very passionate about and has asked to chair and volunteer to chair, and will be supported by Councillors Becker and Prest. There is a vacancy there, so it would be good if anyone else was keen to get involved with that really important piece of work, please get in touch. And then finally, the Outdoor Swimming Group with Councillors Eve, Todd, Tibbet Cooper and Becker, with Councillor Eve very gamely volunteering to chair that informal group. So I look around the room for any comments, questions or any inaccuracies with that. Excellent. So we will take that as noted. I think we probably do need to move to the recommendations on the front of the paper. So there are 4 recommendations. The first one, that we consider the items listed in Appendix 1 and 2 of the report and agrees that you're happy to delegate that to the Strategic Director, who will work in consultation with the Chairman, so me, in the year ahead. Take that as noted. Number 2, that following consideration of the budget review update report at the meeting, that we agree in the inclusion of the budget report items marked as subject to confirmation in the meeting. You happy? Please go back to point 1 because we need to agree that. So can I hear that that was agreed? Thank you. Point 2, does that need to be agreed? Noted. So we agree to include it. Can we hear point 2 is agreed as well, please? Agreed. Fantastic. Point 3, that the forum considers whether it wishes to re-import the informal groups, which I've just gone through. So I hope you do. So that wasn't wasted time. Agreed. Excellent. Point 4, and that the membership is as I've just outlined. Is that agreed? Fantastic. Clean sleeve. Excellent. So I think, subject to what Councillor Batho was about to interject with, Councillor Batho's question was around the work which I think we've all agreed we would want to look at around speed in the city and where that would sit in the informal groups. I think if the town forum is happy, then we'll take that away, make a proposal which we could agree by correspondence, given that these are informal groups, as to where that would sit. So if there are no comments, so colleagues are happy and agree with that. Excellent. Well, it's not even 7:30, and I think we've transacted all the business for today. So thank you, and we look forward to the next meeting of the town forum. And it's now closed.